Welcome back to Kindred Spirits Book Club. This is the podcast where two grown-ass ladies geek out about Anne of Green Gables. I'm Kelly Gerner, and I'm joined by my co-host Reagan Duffy for our Season 5 kickoff.
Yay!
Season 5. So for today's episode, we want to preview our upcoming season and catch you up on what we've been working on. Don't worry, we will be back to our more traditional episode format in just a couple of weeks. If you are here from Anne Helen Peterson's newsletter Culture Study, welcome, new friends. We are delighted to have you join the conversation about Anne of Green Gables, Ella Montgomery, and all things Kindred Spirits. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, we were recently featured on the Culture Study newsletter. Exciting.
Truly a dream come true for the two of us.
Yeah. It's one of our very favorite Substack online publications, so that was a big deal for us. It's authored by Anne Helen Peterson, who is a journalist, author, podcaster, and culture critic whose takes on the world around us always give us so much food for thought and sparks room for discussion. So you may even remember that we referenced her writing about tradwives in one of our past episodes on Anne of Ingleside. We definitely encourage you all to check out her newsletter and her podcast, which is called Culture Study. Back to this podcast. So this season is going to be all about the book Rilla of Ingleside. Reagan and I both think this book is one of Ella Montgomery's absolute best novels, and we are really looking forward to our discussions this season.
But before we get into that, Kindred Spirits, are you following us on Instagram yet? Please do. We have lots of fun sharing pictures and videos about the books. You can find us over there at kindredspirits.bookclub. And we love hearing from all of you. You can email us at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram. We love hearing your thoughts and opinions. Feel free to give us feedback or share your thoughts with us. And we do have a favor to ask, Kindred Spirits. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts if that is where you listen. Spotify and Pocket Casts also have the ability to rate podcasts and leave comments. So if you listen there, please rate us 5 stars as well. That really helps us be more likely to get promoted on those sites. And that helps other Kindred Spirits find us. But now, on to the pod. It's been a minute since we've talked on the pod. Kelly, what have you been doing this summer?
Well, I had a very quiet summer, which was exactly what I needed. We didn't really have any significant travel, no big capstone events, just some long lazy days and backyard barbecues and taco nights, a few days at the beach, a few art fairs, a few concerts in the park. Yeah, we had some visits from out-of-town guests. It was a very relaxed summer, which was kind of a new experience for me, I gotta say, because as you know, Reagan, I am by nature someone who says yes to everything.
That's why we love you, Kelly.
Everything sounds fun. I am a person who gets easily sort of enthusiastic and excited, but often sort of the behind the scenes impact of that is it's just sort of me and my calendar trying to figure out how you squeeze everything into a finite lifespan. And, often I'll end up a little tired and wrung out and worse for the wear. So this year, though, really has been eventful enough for me. And so I knew that I needed to take some time and move more slowly. And so I made a huge effort not to plan a lot of activities, but I have to say, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I really don't. I had a great summer. So that's a lesson for me, I think, to go with the flow a bit more and not feel like I have to say yes and cram everything in and, that there's still a lot of room for enjoyment.
Absolutely. Because we also had a chill hang around the house summer. We did that big Europe trip in the spring. So our travel budget needs a little time to recover. So we stayed pretty close to home. And I think sometimes you just need that. We spent some time doing a lot of local weekend activities, some Shakespeare in the park, beaches, camping. Here's something that I never thought I would say, which is, so we went to the Broadway Rave 3rd anniversary rave. I've talked on the pod before, I think, about taking my theater kid child to some of these, which is basically a club DJ event, but all of the music is musicals.
So fun.
So fun. Everybody cosplays. So we've been a couple of times, but this time my daughter made me cosplay as well. So I dressed as Donna from Mamma Mia, which is essentially a peasant blouse and overall. So done. No problem. And when they played Mamma Mia, she made me get on stage to sing it. Not singing into the mic, but singing on stage.
Yeah.
There was 2 other women dressed as Donna. So the 3 of us got on stage as the Donnas. And it was, Unlike her, I don't really enjoy being on the stage. So that was very out of character for me, but surprisingly fun. So things that were not on my bucket list for the summer that I did.
Sometimes summer just surprises you. I feel like this summer told us both the kind of summer we were going to have. We
Yeah.
didn't tell it. It told us. And we were like, okay, here we are.
But what listeners really want to know, if I know our listeners, is what did you read this summer, Kelly?
Okay, well, in terms of reading, it really has been a phenomenal couple of months for me. Quite a few of my sort of go-to authors had big, splashy releases this summer, and frankly, I liked them all. I just did. I liked them all. My book club read Taylor Jenkins Reid's new book, Atmosphere, which imagines the lives of astronauts in NASA's space shuttle program in the early 1980s. And that one was delicious, just juicy and thrilling, set on this like iconic historical background, just like classic Taylor Jenkins Reid, right? I also quite liked Emily Henry's Great Big Beautiful Life, which had some mixed reviews from, I think, like the universe of romance readers who were sort of expecting a certain thing from her, but I really liked seeing her stretch her narrative wings and do something a little different.
Yeah, I loved that book. I loved that book.
And then Sarah MacLean is another romance author who I absolutely love, and she also had a big departure this summer from the genre to write a contemporary fiction book, which is called These Summer Storms. That book, glorious, absolutely bonkers, ultimate beach read, just like billionaires behaving badly, like think Succession. There's like a mad inventor who has this like inheritance plot and all his kids are fighting over his billions. It was so deranged and I just loved it. So that was These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean. Just wonderful. But my real highlight of summer reading has to be Calabasas by R.F. Kuang, which just came out right after Labor Day. So I say it still counts. It's still summer.
It counts. It's summer in Los Angeles.
Definitely summer, not Los Angeles. And so Calabasas or Catabasis, I'm not 100% clear on that pronunciation. Either way, it's about two Cambridge graduate students who travel to hell, literal hell, on a rescue/research mission. After all, if they make it back alive, then they can write a paper about it and they will definitely win over their dissertation committees, right? And this book, it just pulled me right in with really impressive and creative world building, tons of allusions to other stories about trips to the underworld. So being somewhat familiar with like the Orpheus myth, being somewhat familiar with Dante, that would all be helpful in appreciating this book, but you don't necessarily need to. I mean, they explain it along the ways. It was a great transition from like a summer read into a fall read because it was this super immersive adventure story, but also like had this very cool dark academia vibe, you know, like Bell Tower and Leaves on Cobblestones and that kind of a thing. So that's Calabasas by R.F. Kuang, and that was great.
That is very high on my list to check out. Not that my to be read pile needs any more additions, but I've heard great things. So I had a very relaxing reading summer, to be honest. I think going with the whole relaxing summer vibe in general. So I read several books that were either sequels to books I already enjoy or books by authors that I already know I like. I read the second Emily Wilde book by Heather Fawcett because we love a grumpy academic and we love a historical fairy setting. That was fabulous.
I like those Emily Wilde books quite a lot. And I have to say, there is a common thread of DNA with those Emily Wilde books and with like Calabasas.
I could totally see that.
They kind of go in different directions, right? Like Fairyland versus the Underworld, but similar DNA.
So I read a new book by Mimi Matthews. She's starting a new series. Both Kelly and I have talked on the pod about how much we like her Bells of London historical romance books. The new series is called The Crinoline Academy, and the book is the first one in the series is Rules for Ruin. So think Victorian era, like lady detectives. I loved it. Talk about sharing DNA. It shares DNA with the Veronica Speedwell books by Deanna Raybourn, which we also both love.
Yep.
So very, very good. Really enjoyed that. Very fun.
Okay, cannot wait to try those.
A fun, cozy, romantasy book that I read was An Enchantment of Ravens by Maggie Rogerson. All of my library holds came in at once in July.
Oh, yep.
The cool thing about the world in The Enchantment of Ravens is that the Fae can't create. So they are avid collectors of artists, writers, clothing designers, and their wares. And Isabel is a gifted portrait painter who ends up swept up into like some Fae court politics when she paints the portrait of the Autumn Prince. That's a really fun book. You'll love it.
Ooh, I do love this. I love the way that sounds. That sounds great.
A non-fantasy book that I read was When the World Tips Over by Jandy Nelson. If you have not read any Jandy Nelson, I think her books are technically YA, but in that way of kind of because of the age of her characters, but she has absolutely gorgeous writing, beautiful storylines.
Yes, I have read Jandy Nelson. I agree with you. She is incredible. So I read I'll Give You the Sun and I
Yeah.
read The Sky is Everywhere. She's just a beautiful writer.
Well, so her new one is called When the World Tips Over, and it's a little bit magical realism, and it's about this kind of complicated family in the middle of kind of a crisis situation, and she's switching viewpoints between the various siblings and other people that are kind of surrounding this family, and it's so good. It's so thoughtful, and you really sometimes when you have a book that switches perspectives, you spend it all being like, I just got used to the other character.
Yeah.
I don't like this is too much. I don't feel like our story is moving forward because we're spending so much time switching characters. But this I loved. I thought it was done so well and everything came together in this really beautiful way.
The thing that I think about with Jandy Nelson, and there are quite a few YA authors who do this, so she's not necessarily the only one, but even though the content of her books are for young adults and teens, and that is, clearly her designated audience, she is not writing down.
No.
She is writing lush, lyrical, complex, beautiful books. Yeah, she's incredibly talented.
Another fun bookish thing that I did was I went to a book signing at one of our fave stores, The Ripped Bodice, and it was a conversation between two incredible cozy fantasy authors that we've talked about in the past. They were a delight to listen to. These two were so funny, and it was just a delight listening to them talk about their differing processes. So it was Sarah Durst, and her new book is The Enchanted Greenhouse, and Sangu Mandana, and her new book is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I bought both of them. They're at home with me, but I haven't gotten to them yet because those library holds were about to expire.
I read the first Sangu Mandana book, The Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I know we talked about it on the pod. We both liked it. So I can't wait to read this one. And I haven't dipped my toe into Sarah Beth Durst's books yet, but they look amazing.
I think one of the last episodes in our last season, I had just read The Spell Shop. Very cozy fantasy. You will love. The Enchanted Greenhouse is in that world, but it's standalone, right? They don't necessarily, you don't have to have read one or the other.
Got it.
Sangu Mandana's book, The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, she said is completely different magic system, different. It's different. It's not related to the very secret society of irregular witches, which we love.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's very interesting.
I had assumed that it was. She said the first one she wrote, the magic system was based on vibes only. she's like at this time she wanted to write one that was, she had fleshed out her magic system a little more thoughtfully.
I mean, this is one of those things. I am not one of those readers who needs a perfectly thought through magic system in order to buy in on a fantasy book. Like, magic can be vibes for me. I don't care. Sometimes people will take the Harry Potter magic system to task a little bit. It's like, oh, you say these sort of like quasi Latin words and just put a lot of feeling into it and then magic works kind of a thing. That's fine for me. That doesn't bother me at all. But I will say one thing about Catabasis, which I just finished, is the magic system that she comes up with is mathematically detailed.
Oh,
it is like calculus. It
Fun.
has to do with logic and languages and math and paradoxes. And it is so like detailed and thought through. And I'm like, oh, okay. When you came up with a magic system, you came up with a magic system that for all I know might actually work.
Right. It is interesting because I'm with you. If the author is good enough, I don't mind a magic system that is vibes only.
Yeah.
If I can poke holes in it too easily, I don't love it. It yanks me out of the story. But a lot of times there's authors they write a vibes only magic system fine, wonderfully. I'm all in. But I do love it when you really see that the author has really thought through something very thoughtful in
Yeah.
the way that they want magic to work in their world, where I'm like, oh, this is fascinating.
You're going to like Calabasas a lot. And I think I'm going to love some of the books you have recommended. I've just been adding them one by one to my library holds. And I think I'm going to have just as great a reading fall as I had a reading summer.
Awesome. Well, speaking of a reading fall, let's transition and let's talk about what is coming up for this season. This season is all about Rilla of Ingleside, the final book in the Anne of Green Gables series. So this is the 8th book. In our podcast thus far, we've only had 2 other Anne books where we've spent an entire season on a single book. Of course, our first season was all about Anne of Green Gables. That's the first in the series. It's the core of why this series is so beloved. There was so much for us to talk about just about Anne of Green Gables.
Right. And it's just a really big part of the cultural conversation. It's one book, but there are permutations of it that, have very wide range.
Yes, for generations, right? And then we also spent our 3rd season entirely on Anne's House of Dreams, and that was a slightly shorter season. In both cases, those books are really dense and rich with character development, not just for Anne, but for some of the other people in her world. And they have more complex thoughts and some darker themes. We wanted to make sure we had a lot of space to let those conversations breathe, because those are beautiful and very emotional books.
And we very much felt the same way about Rilla of Ingleside. So this book is, yes, it is part of the Anne series, but Rilla also stands alone in some really interesting ways. Anne, the character, Anne herself, does have a lot of time on the page, and she has her own very moving character arc, but this is her daughter Rilla's book through and through. This is Rilla's coming of age tale. And as far as we know, we're going to speak with some experts this season who might give us more education about this. But as far as we know, Rilla of Ingleside is the only Canadian novel about World War I from a woman's perspective that was written by a contemporary. So it's not just a great novel, it's also a slice of living history. And we've all been living through some unprecedented times lately, as the media likes to remind us.
You know that meme that goes around, something about like, I'm done with unprecedented. I'd like to have some precedented times.
I too would like some precedented times.
Yeah, I feel it.
But reading Rilla of Ingleside felt very familiar to us because those characters are also surviving some unprecedented times. Just as we are living through violence and political upheaval on this international stage, so too are the characters in Rilla of Ingleside. So we deeply related to Rilla's experience of wanting this pleasant, predictable life that she thought she was guaranteed, and instead having to make her way forward in a life full of chaos and unpredictability and tragedy. So, this season we will be returning to the charming seaside village of Glen St. Mary, where Anne, Gilbert, and their children live. The children who we met in Anne of Ingleside and Rainbow Valley are now mostly off at college, except for the youngest, Rilla, who's about to turn 15 and is anticipating the most beautiful years of her life, which she hopes will be full of parties and dances and beaux. The book is shaping up to be another sort of bucolic novel of small town life on Prince Edward Island when, the night of Rilla's first grown-up party, England declares war on Germany. And as the world plunges into war, Rilla's story takes a very different turn from what she had expected.
Rilla is a different kind of Ella Montgomery heroine. And this season, we're going to start by discussing what makes her stand out. With Anne, we talked about how she came to embody her core values of beautiful, clever, and good. And this season, we'll discuss how Rilla subverts some of these themes or makes them her own. For example, we all know how Anne struggled to believe that she was beautiful, struggled to believe that romance would ever come for her. Rilla knows that she's the prettiest girl in town, and she's pretty sure romance is her destiny. How does that hold up against the background of war? How are Rilla's ideas of beauty, love, romance challenged by her lived experiences of coming of age during this tremendously dark time? So we're going to try to ask and answer some of those questions. And luckily, we will not be alone. We'll be inviting back a couple of our past guests, including the incredible Laura Robinson, who is an Ella Montgomery scholar extraordinaire, to discuss this book and help ground us in the historical context. We are also inviting some new people to join us, and we just know you will love to hear from them as well. We love a character study too much to confine that to only Rilla. We're also going to be talking about her brothers, Jem and Walter, and their very different experiences as young men and soldiers. soldiers. We'll talk about the village of Glen St. Mary as a whole, how the community comes together to support the war, or in some cases, how and why they don't, and where they fell short. Susan Baker, Ingleside's faithful servant and chief reputation officer, represents a uniquely patriotic side of Canada's response to the war, which we'll also get into. And we know everyone loves Anne and Gilbert best, so do we. And this is a wonderful book for both of them, where we will see them as parents, community leaders, and individuals who go through some of the most tragic circumstances people can suffer. We're really looking forward to discussing how their arcs over the past books led them to this point.
And since Rilla of Ingleside is a book that was written more or less contemporaneously with the Great War and published very soon after it ended, we also want to discuss the other art that this war inspired, from battlefield poetry written by soldiers to modernist masterpieces like Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. And also, sorry, not sorry, we will not be discussing Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. I have had enough of that between ninth grade and my American Lit survey in college.
Hey, we got to draw a line somewhere.
We really do. T.S. Eliot, maybe. Ernest Hemingway, absolutely not. Reagan, we are about to start season 5. I am so proud of us.
Can you believe it?
And we are really grateful to our loving community of Kindred Spirits who have found us and who listen, give us feedback, have so much fun with us over on Instagram, and inspire us to keep going with this project. What has really surprised you about our experiences podcasting so far?
First of all, I kind of can't believe that we are just as excited about doing this pod and talking about these books as we were in our first season. In some ways, even more excited, because we've really grown as podcasters and have discovered new ways of talking about these books more than we ever could have guessed when we first started this podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I think we started with some strong ideas, but then watching them actually develop and seeing how people participate with us in these conversations, it's really taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
For me, it's really hard to choose just one thing because we've had so many delightful conversations with artists and academics and people who love Montgomery and Anne. I just think I'm surprised the conversation has grown this much, and that what used to be just you and me geeking out about a favorite book is now a conversation that feels like it spans the globe. And it truly is a community, right? This is a very caring and connected community, as we learned firsthand in the aftermath of the fires in LA this year. So I'm so grateful for all of you and your generosity and love.
Yeah, that was really a beautiful thing that came out of a terrible time.
I love all of our episodes with our guests who have ranged from leaders in this field of study to our own family members. And those have all been really so much fun and have affirmed to me the connection that we all share as fans of Anne and Ella Montgomery. But if I have to choose the one thing that really surprised me the most about our podcasting journey, that was the episode that we taped in Maud's church in Cavendish on Prince Edward Island with Brenton Dickinson of the Ella Montgomery Institute and the Maudcast. Now, this was all Brenton's idea. We chatted him up at the conference and he was like, hey, this might be fun. What do you think? Like, I know a guy who has the keys to the church.
I love that. Was my favorite part. He's like, oh, wait, I know a guy. I'll just call him.
Like, I think we can make this work. And before we knew it, the three of us were sitting in the very church pews where Maud once sat, soaking in the same atmosphere that must have inspired her, and recording a podcast there. So that whole experience was otherworldly, transcendental. And for listeners who may want to revisit that conversation, I think that was episode 50. That was right at the end of our season 3.
I have also loved learning from our guests and then having these guests become new friends.
Yeah.
I've especially loved learning more about Maud herself from some of our experts. We just aren't as deeply steeped in the biographical work about Maud. So everything we have learned just gives more and more nuance to rereading these books that we love so much.
Yeah, no, I really agree.
I was thinking about that conversation we had with Laura Robinson about Anne of Ingleside at the beginning of last season, which is not one of our favorite books, but learning more about Ella Montgomery and what she was experiencing and what was the place she was writing that from gave me such a different understanding of that book. And so that has been one of those really lovely pleasures that we've had in so many different conversations throughout this experience of doing the pod. How about in this last season? Do you have any highlights from season 4?
Well, season 4 was so special because it just ended up taking a completely unexpected turn with our like big trip to the Stratford Festival.
I know that was not when we planned season 4, that was not on it.
Yeah, that not on anyone's bingo card for sure. So that ended up being just a wonderful way to close out that season and to connect to so many other fans of Anne of Green Gables. And of course, it was a great trip for us. So that was number 1 with a bullet.
Oh, yeah, me too. That was an incredible experience from beginning to end. I'm still a little in awe of that, from getting to meet the playwright and the actors and then seeing Anne brought to light in a whole new way on the stage. And of course, I love getting a special besties trip with you.
But I have to say, I'm actually really proud of the work we did all last season. We had decided to focus on some books that are not as beloved as the core Anne books. Like you were saying, Anne of Ingleside is probably no one's favorite. And we did some nice work discussing those books. We talked about their strong points and we acknowledged their limitations, and we ended up finding a lot to admire in them. One of my favorite episodes is our romantic quadrangle episode for Rainbow Valley, which we sort of styled after one of our other favorite podcasts, Normal Gossip. So talking about Ellen and Norman and Rosemary and John like we were sharing a funny gossip story with our friends, I felt like that was kind of a fun and funny approach to a story arc, which otherwise might have felt very frustrating.
I agree. And honestly, I loved our episode about parenting in Rainbow Valley too. I mean, I did kind of have a tantrum about John Meredith.
Of course, though, who wouldn't?
I do always appreciate a chance to nerd out on my parenting and child development expertise. So that was really fun applying it to that book. I also loved getting to discuss The Story Girl and The Golden Road and getting an opportunity to think about some of the themes that we've been talking about in the Anne books, kind of starting to look at the overall arching themes in Maud's books as a whole. So we still have a lot of books to talk about, of course. If you didn't know, Ellen Montgomery wrote 20 novels in her lifetime.
Phew.
I know, right? But so we're not quite ready to present our Montgomery-verse unified theory yet. But I love talking about those books because it was giving me ideas about some of these themes we're going to want to look at from a much bigger perspective as we go forward.
Yeah.
Our listenership is steadily growing. So thank you all for spreading the word and for sharing our podcast with the Kindred Spirits in your lives. We'd like to share a few of the emails and reviews and comments that we've received. We lightly edited these for clarity, but the sentiments are genuine. They really mean so much to us. One listener wrote, reflecting on Anne's adventures has created a beautiful wander down memory lane and brought back some fantastic childhood memories. Hairstyling, puffing up sleeves, tea parties. It has also given me an opportunity to reflect on what we can take from Anne in adulthood. I've been struggling a bit lately. It's been a testing time, and I've not always felt that I handled the stress well. In listening to you both reflect on Anne, I have been able to be kinder to myself about how I felt, but also consider those around me.
I just love that. Another listener reflected on the ways that revisiting these books in adulthood brings a new layer of meaning to them. Quote, I'm really enjoying the insights and perspectives that you are offering. I know these books inside out, but I realize now that interpretation was at a girl's level, and in retrospect a bit superficial, or rather taking things at face value. Much of what you say makes sense. I kind of already knew it, but you have a way of putting it into words and explaining the backstory to enhance my understanding further. I really related to this comment because that sense of like, oh, I already knew all this stuff sort of on a soul level, like I incepted as a child from reading these books so young, but then actually being able to tease out these ideas as an adult and apply them to like my lived experience now, it really is just a whole deeper level of appreciation.
Yes.
Another listener reached out to us to let us know about the milestone birthday trip she was planning. Quote, your episodes around visiting PEI have enhanced my excitement and actually led me to reach out to Green Gables Heritage Place. As a dancer/choreographer, I will be creating a short dance film on the grounds in the early morning before the site opens. I'm not sure if I can put into words what embodying the location and experience through dance means to me. I do feel like your podcast has supported and encouraged me to embrace and acknowledge all that Maud's writing has given to me throughout my life and live it out in this way. I love this. And to that listener, we would love to see your film. And we hope you had a wonderful, wonderful birthday trip.
It's been fun to hear how your opinions on the books and characters are evolving along with ours. We even had a listener who advocated for a more empathetic read of the terrible Aunt Mary Maria in Anne of Ingleside. And you know what? She made some excellent points.
You did. We also love hearing what you're doing while you listen. Now, I listen to a lot of podcasts while I work from home, but our kindred spirits listen all over the place while up at night nursing new babies, or while out on a walk with your dogs, puttering around the garden, commuting to work, or in my mom's case, while in the barn grooming her horses.
I also really get a kick out of hearing which of our Inspired by Anne products or ideas we've given that you guys are loving. Everyone who's tried the honey splash salve and the slushy cup, I think we should start getting some advertising dollars because we're doing
So many people.
Yeah.
So many people have reached back out to us and said, "Oh, we tried those and we love those." That stuff is great though.
I have a jar in my shower right now. We really appreciate all the correspondence. We love your recommendations for further reading, your information about topics we're less familiar with, topics from Presbyterianism to the patriarchy. We love how broad your interests and expertise are. We even had a listener who, after Kelly talked about trying to color code her copy of Anne of Green Gables based on the colors mentioned in the text, sent us a color graph of all those colors in order. The coolest thing.
Yes, thank you so much. When we saw that, I think I screamed. That's
I think
just the coolest thing.
You literally did shriek.
Yeah.
If you have a thought about the books, the podcast, ideas of things we should talk more about, theories of your own, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're genuinely so thrilled to know that folks are finding our little passion project and that our hard work is reaching people. You can always email us at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com or reach us on Instagram where we're kindredspirits.bookclub.
All right, everybody. Since we started talking about the summer, let's finish this sort of how I spent my summer vacation themed episode with a few Inspired by Anne recommendations. These will be some of our can't live without summer product recommendations. When this episode airs in October, you may be able to find them on sale, question mark.
Bookmark them for next summer?
I make no promises, but I wouldn't have survived this summer without this. Like I said, we spent a lot of time at the beach this summer, which was absolutely wonderful. But I tell you, I was done struggling with beach pop-up tents, threading all those skinny little stakes through the tent while the wind is like blowing off the ocean and the tent is like halfway across the beach. And no, I don't want any of it. So I found this sunshade called a Sun Ninja, and I love this thing. It took us a couple trips to really figure it out. The first time it was kind of like floppy, but we really got it down the second time. And since then it's been smooth sailing. The Sun Ninja is just a large spandex sheet, essentially, with deep, deep pockets on each of the four corners that you fill up with sand to anchor it. The wind will keep this sheet up, or if it's not windy, it does come with these sort of like collapsible poles, which are very easy to stake in the ground. The sheet also has sun protection, so once you're under it, you're good. And what I love about this thing is that it folds down to nothing. It's like pocket-sized. So you can throw it in your beach tote, no problem, and it sets up and it breaks down super, super fast. It's this like deceptively simple design that ends up working perfectly.
Ooh, that's a great recommendation. I am a very fair-skinned lady and I have a very pale child. I need shade at the beach. We have a slightly more cumbersome like shade tent thing that we got at IKEA. And honestly, that thing got us through COVID when the only way we could socialize was at the beach. But I am totally going to get this thing because I can just keep it in my car for spontaneous beach trips.
Yes, it really is great. Yeah, you can tuck it in your glove box and there it is.
I am going to recommend the Smitten Kitchen recipe for peach Melba popsicles because I've made like 3 batches of these this summer and they're so good. Luckily here in LA, it's hot right through September and October, so I can still make a few more batches before peach season is completely done. But they'd absolutely work with frozen fruit as well if peaches and raspberries are already out of season where you live. Or, bookmark it for next year. And of course, we are going to recommend to you guys the Culture Study newsletter that we were featured in. So please check that out for a behind the scenes look at our process.
Yeah, the newsletter is a little different than just what we talk about on the pod. We're not talking about Anne of Green Gables specifically. We're really talking about what it is like to take on a pretty intensive hobby with your bestie, right? It's an interesting conversation around this idea that's like, oh, we all think we're too busy, but really like when you do just start investing time in something you love, amazing things happen.
Well, Kindred Spirits, it's going to be a great season. If you haven't read Rilla or if you want to reread, there's still time. Next episode, we are going to recap the book. And as you're reading, if you have thoughts, ideas, questions about the book, please reach out. As we've said, we love hearing from our listeners. We love knowing your perspective and what you might see that we haven't. Always, you can get in touch with us at kindredspirits.bookclub@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at kindredspirits.bookclub. If you share about our podcast, either by a review or by posting it on your social media. Tell us, and we will send you a Kindred Spirits Book Club sticker for your water bottle, your laptop, your e-reader, any place you want to stick a sticker. We have a wonderful season in store for all of you, and we can't wait. We hope you join us.
Bye, Kindred Spirits.